This is Scott from Wessex Blades in England. This is my video response to the survival bike for at least my take on what would make a good 1-2 option in terms of survival. For my limited experience out in the woods in England and Wales, I've been using tools mostly for deciduous and conifer use. I'm not going through palm meadows, I'm not going in deserts. It's just literally my take on what I've had experience on and what I found is good or bad. So let's start with what would make a bad 1-2 option, in my opinion. I know your theme tune's great, but for me that would make a bad 1-2 option, because I wouldn't trust the stub tang. Super moving knife, but the saw back would mess up your baton. The cut swedge just makes it weaker at the front, and the limited hollow grind doesn't give you many options when it comes to carving and stuff. There isn't much strength in it for me, because it's all made out of a 440 series steel. So a bad 2 option. Great theatre knife though. So what are we left with? I'd say a plainer looking blade, a much simpler looking geometry. What is a great tool is Tramontina, but it's so thin you can't process firewood very well, because you just can't baton this thing through. It's not going to split because it's not a very big wedge on the profile. You've got 1.5 mm, 2 mm of steel and a little bit of a relief edge at the end, and that's it. It chops well, it feathers well, it shaves wood well, it's easy to use, it's light to use, it's not tiring, the sheaths are a bit dodgy, the handle's good. All those things are in its favour, apart from the fact that it's very long and you're trying to get away from the machete, and it's so thin that to process logs you're going to be struggling, because you just can't split the wood apart. So let's get away from a very complicated saw back and get away from long and thin. What are we left with? So we're looking at sort of mid-range and a thick stout blade. First thing that comes in my mind is money. I can pick these up from Strikeforce Supplies from my mate Jasper for £12, and that's not because it's my mate. He sells them for £12, okay? That's what he lets them go for. A thick, stocky, sturdy slab of British Army issue steel golok. A pretty useful tip. Spartan Johns and Anders Bork did a little redesign there. We shaved a bit off of here, and we put an angle up there for shaving and fire steels. But in terms of the actual blank canvas that you get with this, it's light, you can choke up on the handle, it's got a really good beach handle, and the sheath is pretty good. It does allow it to fall out, but for a 1-2 option, something along those lines in terms of its simplicity and its thickness and its strength, that's where I would want to go. Okay, I like thick, stocky metal that you can actually hit on. So something like that. So I'll put that on this side. Another one I think is great, and since I've been using it I really am impressed, and that's a BK7 thumb ramp. Pretty thick, super handle, amazing handle, really good in my hand, quite narrow, and it's so light. I love it. It's a near full flat grind. The grind starts about there. The only thing against it in my mind is because the swedge is slightly ground away. Obviously you're batoning, you're limited to what you can hit without messing your baton up at that end. But a great usable tip, it will carve all day. I have not sharpened this since when I got it. I put an edge on it. So I've used this 5 times for weekends, okay, and I still haven't dressed it up. It's got a few chips in it, but it's not dropped off in terms of performance. Okay, so that is the steel's come into it here. I think this is super steel, 1095. So something along that size, but it's just let down by that swedge at the front. Great blade, and the handle is super grippy. So something along those lines again. So that goes up in the possibles pouch up there I've got. just bringing the size down and addressing that front swedge, which was tapered back, I'm going to this. Okay, there's the stock, thick, 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 right up to the point, boom, and then it comes in. Now it's a clumsy hunk of steel. It's the Webtex version of the British Army survival knife, of which I'm very fortunate to have one as well. So this one, not that it's service to requirements, but I could have a bit of a play with this in the future, in terms of playing with its front end or playing with the edge. Something like that can do a lot of things quite well. The edge that it came with was lousy, absolutely awful, but with a bit of work, as a 1-2 option, I think this would perform quite well. It does carve brilliantly, it's got a big handle, those rivets give a lot of grip because they get these depressions in them, so it's a big, good grip. The guard's not too bad, doesn't get in the way that much, and it will carve and whittle very well. But it's the wedge profile. From that thick to the grind only to there, this splits like hell. It's got an incredibly strong tip. Okay, the British Army survival one, they call it the sharp pry bar. It's like a crowbar. This one I wouldn't put as a higher quality because it's Webtex. Okay, there they are, dong, Webtex. But something like that, a very simple, chunky hunk of steel with a nice mid grind on it, I'd say is quite good. So something more along those lines in the BK, and that in terms of its size, I'd say is quite good. Again, it's just me. And it goes back to one of the first knives I ever had, when I used to read the SES survival book with John Wiseman. This is as close to a parang as I could get hold of when I was in my teenager years. 14! Alright, so there's me waltzing around the British woodlands with this hanging off my belt. Yeah, it's a Lucetti Fox, it's in stainless, but in terms of chopping, this is amazing because it's weight forward. Okay, so a slight swell at the end. And when it comes to these ones with the different sizes, in terms of a 1-2 option and you're out in the middle of nowhere as a survival knife, I'd like to keep the bottom edge straight so that sharpening is easier. But in terms of the thickness and the handle drop at the back, a lovely, lovely blade. Lovely blade, really nice to use. Bit of a swedge at the front, but look at the thick of stock this is. Look how thick it is. So, a Lucetti Fox with a leather sheath. Now this is a lot better than the most other ones we got there. The Golok and the Webtex one have got those pouch sheaths. A 1-2 option should be a complete deal. Okay, it should have all bases covered pretty well, and that goes to this thing as well. That goes in, down, has a metal catch on there so you don't cut the sheath up, a popper for retention, and a leg strap as well. Now that thing, I'm 40 now, that's 25 years old. Okay, so that is stood up to a lot of work. Okay, a lot of bad weather, and it's still hanging in there and still performs as it should. And the sheath, in terms of the package, okay, makes it a decent, all-rounded, very capable tool. But I want it more like that in terms of simplicity, without that dual shape, that difficult to sharpen out in the middle of nowhere shape. So you want it simple. So a far better sheath than the Webtex. Okay, anyway, what we got to try and basically do is chop like that and carve like that. Now what I get hold of in England quite readily are these chopper things. Now we've got English bill hooks, and you got these are just cheap, simple splitters. Now straight away, what can you see? It's thick. This is a full flat construction. This has been forged. Okay, bang, bang on some power hammer in the 50s or 40s. This is this old. So I've got that one. I've converted a couple already into Bowie knives. They're very, very cheap to get all of. That's one of mine. I've got a conversion for JKD 185. Here they are again. Alright. You can get hold of these things very easily. Where's the other one? Just bought this weekend. Okay, 25 pence. Alright, needs a new handle, but there we are. Look how thick the stock is. Can I get up right up against close there? Can I whittle with it? Can I carve with it? Yeah, we just got to adapt the front end. So what I'm proposing to do is, I'll see you in a few minutes, and I'll see what I can make. See you in a bit. 5 minutes on the car. So my converted chopper. Still in shop. Can it carve? Oh yes. So that's something what I'd say would be a good one tool, survival tool. A Tyzac & Co from Sheffield. Converted chopper. It's about 8mm thick. It's about an 8-inch blade. And cost me 50p. That's 6 blades in the house.